Educate, entertain, enjoy.
You're listening to Aspen Waite Radio.
Paul Waite.
You are listening to Aspen Waite Radio, and this is the live Monday interview. And this week we have as our special guest Mr. Alec Jones-Hall. Very good morning, Alec.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a little bit nervous, actually, because I normally interview you. It's a role today, so it's time to get your own back.
Well, I don't know about that. Good morning, Claire. There we are. So a cup of tea come in. So I say I suppose we ought to do a bit of an introduction here. So I've known you for probably 8 years. Was it 8 years or 7 years?
I think about 8 years now, Paul.
Yeah, very interesting story, actually. One of the things that Alec and I are both very dedicated to doing is hoping to inspire others and for people to learn from our mistakes, not all just good things. But I think the journey with Alec is a very good human story, actually.
Yeah.
One of my colleagues, Samantha Clyde, originally came along and said we ought to be exhibiting at GB Expos, and I went, what's that all about? I had no experience whatsoever of ever attending an expo, I wasn't a huge fan, to be honest. I think it was more a case of let's give it a go, and see what happens. And to start off with, of course, I was. I think I became a sort of a junior speaker fairly early on, but I was only allowed to talk about things like the history of dinosaurs and just in my little joke, that is. I had to talk about very technical things, and I think maybe only about 2 years at the most into the relationship, Sam herself didn't really want to do it anymore, and I can't remember quite how it happened. So Tina, of course, who is a wonderful lady that looks after me. What did you say? Thank you, Drew, for that interruption. So Tina has really been the number one Aspen Waite force in the relationship with GB Expos over our time. And Tina said to me, "No, I really want to do this." And I actually remember meeting Alec and his partner Alison. A big shout out to Alison, and especially your dog. Hope he's on his recovery. Alison, beautiful human being, and your sister as well, who's a lovely lady. Gives me plenty of encouragement when I'm talking. I met Alec and Alison at the Doubletree Hilton in Swindon, I think it was.
You did.
I actually remember where we sat as well. Isn't that scary? And actually, to everyone's surprise, far from reducing or ending the association, we expanded it.
Yes, yeah.
And that then became a slightly different era. I'd have to say, being honest with you, Alec, I reckon, I was trying to think about this last night when I was, I would say probably for 2/3 of the time I've known you, you were more like a supplier than a friend, and then I think probably over the last year, I would say, without getting too sentimental, probably my relationship with you has probably deepened more than with anybody else.
I would agree. I mean, it's been incredible. One of the positives of lockdown has been getting to know you, Paul, and working with you and getting to know the real Paul Waite, behind, the entrepreneur and all the titles you've got, but getting to know the real man and the real entrepreneurial journey. I know it's inspired countless thousands of SMEs that have attended our sessions and the expos that we've done and the awards and people getting really to know you. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the great things in life, and I think one of the reasons why Alec and I now get on so well is because actually, despite the fact that if you looked at us, you wouldn't necessarily think that we were very alike. We are incredibly alike in many ways. And one of the things I think is very important is things like to appreciate things that people do for you. And there's no doubt whatsoever that without Alec and Alison, my, I suppose, emergence maybe as a media personality would probably never have happened. Yeah, go
But
on.
I would say, Paul, I mean, I remember the first time you spoke, it was in Windsor, opposite Windsor Castle, and you spoke to a group of entrepreneurs, and you were a breath of fresh air to that crowd because you were honest, you were transparent, you talked about your own entrepreneurial journey, and you were very disruptive. And I remember being in that room, and I think there's about 60 to 80 serious entrepreneurs. And you had, men in tears, we could really relate to your personal experience. And I've also then, we took it to the expos, and I've seen at the expos how, people just really appreciated the honesty and the journey that you've been on.
Yeah, just to be clear, so when Alec talks about Windsor, this was the first time that Alec actually let me talk about anything I wanted. So I say prior to that, I was an expert, and he actually said, will you do the lunch talk at Windsor? And anyway, the rest is history, as they say. So Alec Jones Hall, staggering. He's only 34 years old, 35 this September. Amazing what you can find out on the internet these days, Alec. So he's a man of a very youthful disposition, but I was just saying to Drew, you're like, I take this as a compliment. You're sort of, you're like one of those people that was put on this planet, sort of already sort of grown up and serious. And being serious for a minute.
An old soul.
So do you come from Staffordshire originally?
I do. So I actually live in a little market town called, well, I don't live there now, but I actually grew up in a little market town called Rugeley, and it was an old mining town. So, my family originally came from Newcastle, Geordieland. My mum came from there, and my dad came from Liverpool and originally from Ireland. But they moved down for the mining in the mining town of Rugeley.
So was your father a miner?
No, no, my father wasn't a miner. My mom's father was a miner. Yeah.
When did you have was your childhood at all happy? Even were there any glimpses of happiness that you can remember, or was it just hard work and sadness all the way through?
I mean, there was periods of happiness, but it was an incredibly difficult childhood, Paul. I mean, my parents were both drug addicts, and my parents, were been in and out of prison. So it was a very, very difficult childhood. I had no parental guidance, and it was a constant fight or flight. And looking back now, I think one of the reasons that I'm kind of resilient as I am, and as a fighter, I fought all through lockdown to keep our business going. I think it's because of what I had to endure when I was younger. I had to fight to survive. I had to fight to literally to get through that very traumatic and turbulent childhood that I had. I was very fortunate that Julie's sister Alison that you mentioned, she's also a church leader, and she founded a youth program on the council estate that I lived on. So that was a life send to me, really, that I was able to go to this youth program and just kind of get people that believed in me, mentored me, and let me believe that I didn't have to follow the pattern of the example that I was being shown by my parents and their associates.
But how did they find you? I mean, how did you manage to escape, this prison and actually get there in the first place?
The way that I, again, it was a youth meeting. It was a youth program. Julie did a youth program with the church on the local estate. And I had a friend that used to go to Julie's church. I didn't know they went to the church, and they invited me to the youth program. So I went along to the youth program, and I had always had a belief in God. I'd always, I don't know where that came from, but I'd always had a consciousness of faith. So it wasn't difficult for me to go to church, and it wasn't difficult for me to become part of the youth program. And when I went to the youth program, it was then that I started to see a different way of living, and I started to be surrounded by different people, and was led to believe that you can achieve, and you don't have to be defined by your parents' limitations, or the surroundings that you're in.
That's interesting. We're getting up to Alec's first music selection today, but I don't think you know this, Alec. So I started going to Sunday school from the age of 4, and used to do Bible readings and sing in the church on Saturdays. And in fact, I remember being presented with my own Bible when I was about 9 or 10. There was lovely pictures in it. And I think by the time I was 11, I'd read the Bible all the way through from cover to cover about twice. and I sat down with Reverend John Hill, who was a great influence on me, under a tree in the graveyard, funnily enough, one day, and I said, "I'm very sorry, Vicar. I fall back this a lot. I don't believe anymore."
Oh wow!
We had quite a big chat about it, and he was very nice. But I've always been hugely interested in religion, so I still am. I would say I was religious, but not in a conventional way that you were, if you know what I mean.
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm religious in a conventional way, neither, Paul. And the first song you're going to pick, I think, will reflect a little bit of that. I'm not religious as in the sense of, Orthodox or high church. I'm more of a Pentecostal Christian, yeah.
Okay, well, I think with that wonderful lead-in, let's take it away with Nina Simone.
Aspen Waite Radio. Paul Waite.
Oh, that was just me. That was outstanding, Paul clapping that. So that was very Alec-esque, I thought, Alec.
Yeah.
So we just got to the point where Alec has got faith, and one of the things. So I think a sincere thing to all you people in listener land. I've hugely of the opinion that people who have faith, on the whole, it's easier to die, shall we say, as well. It's easier to face adversity because. I think if you believe in something, it gives you more courage and a sort of inner contentment without being too deep.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, even during this whole period of COVID, Paul, having a faith, is a constant comfort, it's a reassurance. I believe that Jesus Christ is the anchor of our souls. So, you have that stability, in the midst of the storm, you've got an anchor. And the reason I picked that song, Nina Simone, was, I've lost probably through the expos and through friends, through another business, 25 people I've known that have lost their lives to COVID during the last 16 months. And our business, as lost over £500,000 now this year we would have lost. But, I have to remind my trouble that we're in, we've still got life, I've still got my life. And I think that's the positive moment, that you can business, but if you haven't got life, you're stuck.
So 11-year-old Alec, so what did so you obviously found this community and something to believe in, which gave you strength. Did you have other family members like your grandma or something that was looking after you, or were you really on your own?
Really on my own. My grandparents, because of my parents' addiction, they kind of kept our family at a distance. So I really was on my own. And, I know it sounds bleak, but it's the reality of what it is. And we didn't have any kind of external influences apart from the church and friends and family that I would say now that I met through faith that became, positive influences. My own family, no, we didn't have anybody really, I would say, that kind of stepped in to fill that void. So
when you were at school, what subjects did Alec shine at?
Well, initially, I mean, when I was until the age of about 14, I didn't really shine at anything. But then there was a pivotal moment where, again, somebody started to show interest in me. And then I started to shine at English and geography, art, RE, and design technology. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you feel about... I always remember RE. So we had to do every week. We had to go Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. Can you do that?
Yes, I can. Yes, indeed.
You're impressed. I can. Anyway, so you didn't know that, did you?
I didn't know. I'm very impressed. And I'm impressed you read the Bible twice by the age of 11. Have you still got a copy of that Bible?
I don't know where it is, to be honest. I mean, just slightly digressing, although it's sort of relevant digression. I'm absolutely fascinated by the book Revelations, and of course it's been used by Hollywood, including The Omen, for instance, which frightens the hell out of me. I think more just because if you're watching something like Friday the 13th, it's clearly made up.
Yeah.
When you watch The Omen and you've got, they're quoting from Revelations chapter 13 or something,
Yeah.
it does rather freak me out, to be honest. So anyway, so you got to, so you did very well at school, I take it.
Yes, I did. I passed. I got A stars, A's, B's. Yes, I did. Yeah.
You look like he looks like a little swat, doesn't he? To be honest, just imagine, look at that swatty Alec bloke sitting in the back. So funny. I'm just trying to build a picture now. Was little Alec sort of like big Alec, if you know what I mean? If I met 15-year-old Alec, would I recognise him?
At the age of 15, 16, you probably would have. If you'd met me before the age of 14, no, you wouldn't. I mean, I was about to be expelled from school. I was very disruptive. I got into a lot of trouble, because of the family home life that I had. But there was a pivotal decision I had to make. I had a choice, Paul. I was either going to follow a life of criminality and I was either going to follow my family or I was going to get my head down, study hard at school and change and break that whole pattern of abuse. And I know it probably sounds like quite a prolific decision for a 15-year-old to make, but seriously, that is the decision that I made. So I had siblings at the same school as me. My family was very well known in the area that I lived. And, I was this kind of little odd kid and that was nothing like my family. And if you ever visit Cherishers and visit our town, people will tell you that who knew me and knew my family, I was kind of an oddity really to what people would expect coming from the family that I did.
I couldn't possibly comment, Alec. So 16-year-old Alec, he's sat there and he's making this decision that you can't really, actually, even if you wanted to, you can't really afford higher education.
No.
So why did you go into a selling job? That's rather surprised me.
I had to leave home. I was actually kicked out of home because I won't go into the details. I'm sure you can imagine, So I had to leave home. I had to go and get my own apartment. I had to start paying council tax rates and, I had to fund myself. So in my little town, there isn't many jobs that paid well. But there was a finance broker in our local town and they were quite a large employer. They employed over 500 people. So I just went straight into that job. And
how did you get that, though? Did you walk in and ask for
I just contacted them, called up, had an interview and got the job. And so it was just proactive. They were actively always recruiting people, and I think they were very, very stringent on hitting your sales target. And it was quite a laugh really, because each week if somebody didn't hit their sales target, you'd often wait to see who was going to be given their P45 by each Friday. They'd be out the door. So you really, really had to make sure that you performed and you hit your target. So it was a very high pressured sales job. But I walked into it. It was an area of hunger, Paul. I had the hunger of I had to obviously pay my bills and I had to fund myself now. I didn't have a choice but to thrive in that situation.
So you actually were in telesales, is that right?
Telesales, yeah, I was in telesales. I was selling mortgages and secured loans.
Gosh. So one of the things, when I think about you as a character, you're a person of principle and you stand for something. You're also highly eloquent. So one of the things I like about our relationship is when you interview me, I'm not sitting there all the time thinking, I've got this strong person asking me questions in a rather bad way. So where does that sort of ability to talk and intelligence come from?
I don't know really, Paul. I mean, I would say, you've met Julie. Julie's a very articulate person, has got a great grasp of the English language, and she's been a great influence in my life. So maybe I've picked up some of that kind of influence off Julie. And Julie's a great preacher and very, very, like I say, commands the English language. So maybe it's come from her, but I've never really thought about that really. Where does that come from?
Oh, that's why I'm interviewing you see.
I've never thought about it. I don't really know.
We have to from now on.
I think I've always had an interest. I believe behind every person there's a story. We've all got a story about what makes us and what's defined the journey that we're on. So I've always been intrigued to understand people's story, to understand what motivates them, to understand what their why is, and so I've always been that kind of person that wanted to really scratch beneath the surface and get to know the real person, the real story.
Okay. And when you were so have you been a prolific reader, or are you not a reader? You don't
I
read
am
books?
now. I wasn't a prolific reader for many years. I found reading quite difficult. But as I get older, and I think as you do get older, you find the joy of reading. And I think, a book really can change your mindset and change your life. And so I think as I've got older, I found reading to be a lot more empowering, really. And I think one of the great blessings of having a good book, you can really escape. You really can escape, and you can, it doesn't matter where you are or what situation, circumstance you're in, you can go to another world, by reading a book. So I would say so now, but no, not at the beginning. I wasn't an avid reader.
Just out of interest, to give you some clues for future interviews with me. So I was the complete opposite. I've been a prolific reader from the age of 4.
Okay.
I was. In fact, I think probably my love of reading is quite an important, definer of who Paul is.
Yeah.
Just again, one of the reasons we're doing this is to give other people tips. So I'm a great believer that through my love of writing, etc. That's one of the reasons why I have a very good appreciation of words, for instance, and can use them well, because I'm used to reading great storytellers and the way they write. So I take it you were doing your selling job for 5 years, were you?
I was doing it for 5 years. I'd become one of the top sales people within the organisation. I was actually in America, Paul, when the collapse came in 2008, and I came back and to the company I was working for, and overnight the company had gone, and they just retained a small handful of us. They were going to try to rebuild, but it didn't happen. So it was the crash really that happened in 2008 that kind of closed the industry down.
So I know that you say that you went into business at the age of 21. So what business was that?
It was a marketing agency. So I went from running the business where I was, the finance business. They started to sublet their offices out to other organisations. And one of the owners of one of these organisations that was subletting had noticed me, and they noticed how dogged I was to try and get a sale, and how I'd never take no for an answer. So they offered me a job. And so I went to go and work for that organisation, and I ended up running a marketing agency. So we created a marketing agency in the Midlands, and I was practically the MD of that company and was running that for a number of years. And I think the advice I'd give to your listeners was I had to adapt very, very quickly. I had to learn new skills. And I think, I watched last night the film Hidden Figures. I don't know if you've seen that film, Paul, about the first Black women of NASA. And how they saw computers coming into NASA, so they had to go and start to learn how to program computers. And I think as entrepreneurs, we've got to keep learning skills and keep adapting. Yeah, so I had to quickly adapt, and I had to start to learn how to market and how to run a marketing agency, and that's what I did. So
going back, so you've got a very wide pedigree in marketing. So
yeah.
Was that websites as well, and
it was
branding?
It was branding, websites. It was running campaigns. It was being a publicist, doing PR. Working in different advertisement for TV, radio. You name it, we've done it.
So you were a bit of a precocious talent, were you?
You could say that. I mean, it was wonderful to build the business up. I mean, obviously, it wasn't my business; it was owned by other people, but I was running it for about 4 years.
Very good. So I think we'll go into your next track. It's not a song I'd actually ever heard before until last night. And it's a song called Jesus is on the Main Line by Mavis Staples. I take it this is sort of a song that's very important to you in terms of your faith. Is that right?
Well, it is, and I wanted to, I've got a real faith, and I believe I've got a real relationship with Jesus Christ, and I wanted to take you to church, Paul. I wanted to give you a flavour of our church. The song that you're going to hear is the kind of music we sing in my church.
So, be uplifted and have some spiritual moments, regardless of where you're driving in Great Britain today. And it's Mavis Staples.
Paul Waite.
I rather like that. I like the thought of Jesus being a doctor and a lawyer. That's it's quite soulful, as Drew was saying.
Yeah, he's a great physician.
So when I think about it, it just occurred to me when I was listening to that. So are you still learning to read the Bible in Hebrew?
I am, yes, I am. So still learning to read the Bible in Hebrew, and yes, indeed, yeah.
And how's that going?
It's going well. It's quite hard, Paul. I mean, it's very, it's not easy learning biblical Hebrew or even modern Hebrew. It's not easy. So it's going well. There's people within our church that are much better at it than me, but it's going well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm really impressed that that you would want to do that. To be honest. And you've been to Israel, haven't you? I think.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I've been to Israel probably about 15 times. Been to Israel. We take Bible tours of Israel. We see the historical sites. Also been to Patmos, Paul, where you said about Revelation, where John the Apostle had the revelation. At the island of Patmos. So, but yeah, I've been to Israel numerous times. Got many Israeli Jewish friends. Yeah, and really support the nation of Israel.
Shalom, everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, so young Alec, precocious talent. I bet he was even wearing lovely ties then.
We had to, yeah.
He discovered his cool business persona. So he got to the age of 26. And what led to the process of forming GB Expos?
Alison, my business partner, you know Alison, she was subcontracting into the company the company I was running, and Alison kept saying to me, why don't you do this for yourself? What you're working for somebody else, you're earning X, Y, and Z. You could be earning double the amount of money. If you were to do this for yourself, then you come and join me. We'll go into business together. But at the time, Paul, and this is the reason I love our sessions on a Friday, taking that jump of not having the security of a salary through family circumstances, we had to buy out one of our family homes. So at the point of making the decision, I just got a new mortgage, and the mortgage payments were higher than my monthly salary. So I had to, I made the decision for personal reasons, but also the people that I was running the business for, they weren't aligned to my values or my ethos, or just my set of principles. So I was running this organization, making them a lot of money, not getting paid a particular lot of money myself. And so that was the decision we decided to set up GB Expos. I wouldn't have liked it to have happened as suddenly as it did, because I had to leave that organization. And then within month one, we had to start making a profit at GB Expos, because I had this new mortgage I had to pay, and I had bills again. I found myself back in the situation that when I was 16 and had a property that I had to, a livelihood that I had to support.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, I was sort of deep in thought listening to Mavis Staples, and one of the things I hadn't really appreciated at the time, because I didn't know you and I didn't know your backstory, is obviously when I first met you, you were learning your craft, really.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind me saying this, I do remember some early thoughts. I wasn't entirely convinced that these people know exactly what they're doing, etc. And of course, looking on 8 years further on, not many 26-year-olds would dare to set up a national company like you did. So how did you find the seed capital and the working capital to launch the business?
We didn't have any.
How did you pay for anything?
We didn't initially when we were doing it. I know it sounds stupid. When I left the company that I was running, the marketing agency, the previous owners, they took over running the company and wasn't running it ethically, and so all of those clients came to me. I didn't approach them, I didn't try to canvass them. They all came across to this new business that I had formed with Alison. So within month one, we had the seed capital, but it wasn't through investment; it was through actually signing up clients and getting them on board. So we did have initial working capital, but it was literally by getting these new clients on board. I mean, I wouldn't have actively gone and approached them because it would have been a breach of contract, but that they came and they started wanting to work with us.
So you're very fortunate in many respects that the name was available, I think.
Well, the Great British, it wasn't called that initially, Paul. This is one of the lessons I learned as an entrepreneur. We used to be called Outsourced BK. And it was called that for, again, first two to 3 years. And then we had a mentor, and this mentor had ran over 67 businesses. He now goes into the House of Parliament and the House of Lords and consults for SMEs. And he said to me and Alison, what is Outsource BK? Change your name. And he said, you need a name that reflects what your business does. So he said, why don't you call yourself something like Great British Expos? That's what you do. It says what you do on the tin. So that's when we changed. That's when we changed them. And it took me a very important lesson about having the right name and having the right branding. I mean, you'd think I would have known this, running a marketing agency for 4 years, but it was important.
It did cross my mind.
Yeah. But we changed the name of the company, and within the next 12 months our turnover doubled.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just a great name, isn't it? I mean, I think sometimes I used to, when I was starting out, I used to have a saying which was, I put the B in B shit. And of course what happens is that I think you create so much forward momentum that you don't need to say that anymore, because it becomes... And I think, that's sort of what you've done, isn't it? It's a bit like you've created this sort of veneer where no one would question that you were maybe the nation's leading expo provider.
Well, I think we are now, Paul. I mean, when we make that claim, we don't make it falsely. I mean, I don't know any other organisation in the UK that has got the coverage now that we've got, right from down in Ascot right up until Manchester, that we do regional shows. And certainly, I would say before the pandemic, there was a handful. But after the pandemic, there isn't many event businesses that are still here or still around that have got that kind of coverage. I mean, we did the Midlands Expo. We haven't done a show there for 2 years. You were a highlighted keynote speaker on last Thursday, and phenomenal reception. All the people that came back and supported it, very well received. So when I say that, I mean, we probably help now, I guess, across all of the shows that we do, we probably get about 12 to 15,000 SMEs a year registering for our events.
So I think I'm right in saying, I've personally spoken at Birmingham, Ascot, Windsor, Swindon, Reading and Bristol, I think.
Yeah, you need to go to Manchester.
I haven't done Manchester yet. Yeah. How did you decide on the venues? How did, why those?
We started to, we only started our first show in Ascot. And then we started to look at the economic areas where we wanted to run these shows. And we also started to do a recce and see, is there any competitors in these areas? So it was very strategically planned. We didn't just, say, we want to do a show in this area. One thing we did when we first started the business, we would find out the very best talent in those areas. So, for example, when we did the Thames Valley, we picked out the very best networkers, the influencers, and we retained them. We put them on our books. So we could start to get into their connections, get into their databases, and get them to actually start shouting about the event, and get regional people that would be ambassadors for the expos, because obviously me and Alison can't be in Swindon and Reading and all these areas. So that's the way that we really did it initially, that we had regional ambassadors that would be really shouting about the event and help us get it established.
So this is definitely Paul getting his own back now. So when you started 8 years ago, what will you say were your strengths and what were your particular weaknesses in terms of suddenly having to run your own business?
I think me and Alison are very good salespeople, so we could get the sales in. I think the thing that let us down was the eye to detail. And I think even now, sometimes we have to be very careful. So we have Julie and we have other people that are very analytical. And I think you often find that with some entrepreneurs or salespeople, the finer details, it can be a little bit difficult. So I think the organisation, that the kind of eye to detail was letting us down. But I would also say, Paul, understanding your figures. And I think that was the thing that really let us down, not understanding our profit margins enough and understand the right kind of profit margin you need to make on any particular stand. It probably took us about 3 to 4 years to really understand profit margins, gross profit, net profit, and all of that.
That was very, very far-sighted of you there, because you've probably answered the question I was going to ask you, which was, what's the thing you've most learned? So what you've most learned is the need to understanding the pricing and the costing of your business, at what point you break even, etc., etc. Would that be true?
Yeah, absolutely. Every year now we put our prices up. We may only put them up by £10 a stand, but we certainly do so. But even by putting your prices up by £10 a stand, it gives you more working capital. It enables you to expand. It enables you to launch new areas, to reinvest in the business. So that is certainly something that we understood. And at one point, Paul, I mean, for the first 3 years, I'd actually realised when I sat down and did the figures that one of our entry level stands, it was actually costing us to let that person have the stand. We weren't making any money. So that was a massive change in the business.
Very good. So nicely set up for the final part of Alec's story today. And the third track you've picked today is actually quite funky for you. So we've actually got Marvin Gaye. And of course, again, I couldn't help but think of the sort of parallel here, because of course Marvin Gaye himself had a very difficult upbringing and was eventually shot by his own father.
Yes,
which is quite relevant, in terms of the life struggle you've had.
Yeah. And when I listen to Marvin Gaye, I mean, that song was written in 1971, the original, and and it's political conscious music, Paul. And I think of when I look at what's going on today, and I look at all the struggle for equality, I look at the 40.3 million modern slaves that we have in the world. You think it's still going on. I can't believe that what he experienced in the 70s is still happening today.
Okay, so what's going on, Drew?
Aspen Waite Radio. Full Waite.
That was like listening to you in the bath, Drew.
What's going on?
Anyways, we got 10 minutes left with our special guest today, the wonderful human being that is Alec Jones-Hall. So I need to make sure that, as he's such a good promoter of myself, that we don't leave anything in the locker, as they say, Alec. So with that in mind, tell us all about Cherishers and how that came to be born, and why did you want to do it?
When we set Great British Expos up, it was always a view that it was business and community, and I think you're a great advocate of that, Paul. And I was listening to Marvin Gaye then. He said, what we need is more love in the world, and I think just think if more entrepreneurs and CEOs were more like you. You've supported us for the last 8 years, which in effect has supported Cherishers. And I think business has got a responsibility to give back, and I think it's got a corporate responsibility. So when we set up the business, one of the biggest factors for me and for Alison and Julie was we didn't just want to change our lives and make us richer. We actually wanted to change other people's lives. So we set up Cherishers to give other people meaningful employment, and also to help, because of the background I came from, with drug addiction and all of that, we wanted to give people that wanted to be rehabilitated an opportunity. Now, we're people that have been in prison, Paul, or have been addicts, or been in trouble with the police. Normal routes to employment is often not accessible to them. There's barriers to employment. So we set up Cherishers to give those people meaningful employment, pay them the living wage, upskill them, and just help people rebuild their lives. So that's one aspect of Cherishers. And the other aspect is we then go into the community and we give home care to the elderly, we give home care to the vulnerable. During lockdown, we fed up to 600 families. So it's a real conscious giving back. And we launched the Business Awards, which you sponsor and you hosted recently, and all the profits from those, the sponsorship, everything after cost is donated to Cherishers to just keep it financially viable, because it is a community interest company.
Very well said. So what are your plans for growing Cherishers? Do you have any plans to roll out nationally, or?
Wow, who knows? Who knows? I mean, some of the people that really inspired me in business was some of the great Christian pioneers like John Cadbury or Joseph Rowntree, and all these people. They set up similar models, and again, they just wanted to make a societal change and give meaningful employment. So we don't really know where it's going to go at the moment during lockdown, Paul. I mean, I'm actually doing a degree at the moment for Cherishers. So I'm doing it for the health and social care sector. So we've gone into more domiciliary care, and we're actively trying to employ people, and we really want to disrupt the care industry. We want to go in there and deliver care not for profit, whereas a lot of the competitors are making a gross amount of profit. I mean, it's quite obscene, really, the amount of profit from people's misery. So we're looking to really disrupt that and to go and deliver care meaningfully, but for not for profit.
So we might see an Alec Jones Hall Village one day. That'd be something, wouldn't
Well,
it?
I don't think I'd name it after myself. No, but it's no. It's we just want to make a difference, and I'm waiting for the lockdown to end and you to come up and visit Cherishers Pool and to meet all the staff and some of the clients.
Yeah, of course. So something that's very relevant to a lot of the listeners here today, with our main DAB region being Wales. So you have big plans to expand and take the message into Wales. So tell us a bit about that.
We certainly do, because we have got such great friends at Aspen Waite, and I think we know the King of Wales.
Yes, thank you for that. That's very good. Not said very often, not enough.
Yeah. We know the King of Wales, and for years and years and years, Paul, we've been asked to go into Wales. Me and Alison have been asked for years to take a business show into Wales, but we were always looking for the right partner to actually go in and do a Welsh business show, and we found that partner. It's Aspen Waite and Aspen Waite Radio. And I think collectively we're really going to disrupt the industry there in terms of the sector, and we're going to hopefully create the biggest business show in Wales. So we're really excited about it. It may be virtual this year because of the nature of what we're experiencing, but long term, we want to do a physical show in Wales with Aspen Waite and really make it a flagship for GB Expos and Aspen Waite.
So when's the first virtual event planned?
We're still in the planning stages, but it is going to be towards the end of this year. I wish I had a date I could give you. I should have prepared a date to come on.
No, that's fine. Yes, all you people out there in Wales listener land, start salivating and prepare for the great experience of being involved with GB Expos. So I suppose we'll talk a little bit about SME Magazine.
Yeah.
So how did that come about, and what plans do you have for that?
I used to work with Talk Business Magazine, Elite Business Magazine, and another Business Insider, and they always approached me and asked me to be a distributor for their magazines at our expos. So we were probably distributing about 10,000 copies a year, and we were getting them 10,000 subscribers across our platform. And then it suddenly hit me: why am I building somebody else's subscription model, and why am I, providing them with all these subscriptions when actually I could produce our own magazine and get our own subscription base? So that's where it came from. We had all the contacts. We had the same entrepreneurs that have been interviewed in their magazine were speaking at our shows, the same sponsors, and we actually had, Paul, sponsors like Vodafone, Co-op, and Visa. They actually said to me, and Alison was in a meeting, and it was with Vodafone, and senior level said, we want to spend more with you. What are you doing? And you're going to do another show, or we've got digital spend. And so it came from that as well. I saw that there was more money on the table that we could potentially get off people if we had a digital publication.
Yes, and I'm very proud to say that I've written a few articles for this magazine, and I find it actually quite inspiring. And I've started now, my whole mindset is very different. So I do sit there every now and again and think, I care about this. Yeah. I must write an article for SME.
Where can people find that, Alec?
If they go on to www.sme.co.uk, and Paul's articles are always some of the most popular, especially the one that you did, Paul, the betrayal of business. I mean, that's had thousands and thousands of people reading it and viewing it, and we try to get credible people like you that have built successful businesses to come and share their skills and their expertise, and to give a voice to business, really.
So you've now very successfully, and I'm very proud to be associated with this, very much so, actually. You've been doing the Business Awards for a while now. Do you think that is that a logical development coming out of the expos, do you think?
It was a logical development. Quite often in the business award industry, it's normally who you know. It's normally, it could be very, very nepotism. People win an award because they spend so much money with you. We wanted to again disrupt the industry, so we have an independent panel of judges. I'm not involved in any of the judging, any of the nominations, so it's not associated with us. If somebody wins one of our awards, it's based on merit, not based upon nepotism. So yeah, it was really well received. We've now got the biggest awards in Thames Valley, the biggest awards in the Southwest, and through our partnership we're now going national, and we're going to do the Great British Business Awards, and that's coming from a need from people in Birmingham and Manchester, Paul, saying we want to enter the awards, and you need to create an award for us.
So the national awards really, truly will be national. So
National.
anyone can apply.
They can, from John O'Groves right down to Land's End, anybody can apply. These awards.
And this is November or October?
It's going to. I think, Paul. We're looking. We need still to confirm with you, but I think it's going to be the actual awards ceremony will probably be the first week of December.
Oh, first week of December. Okay. I have to say, just opening up the soul to you, so to speak. When I was fortunate enough to host the Thames Valley and Southwest Business Awards for you recently, I was very conscious, actually. Sometimes you're actually aware that this is like a life-changing moment.
Yeah.
And I was sort of sitting there thinking, Waite's life was never going to be the same again after this. So,
you became a star in your own right, Paul. I mean, on the actual night, Drew was there, Tina and everybody in the chat. People were saying, "I want this copy of Paul's book, and I want this, and I want that." All these people were really inspired by the way that you hosted it. And I think what people liked about your hosting of the awards was because you are a credible entrepreneur, you were able to inject these entrepreneurial nuggets all through the night and really kind of show empathy and show support to these male and female entrepreneurs that had won these accolades.
Well, I got that. What a wonderful 59 minutes and 30 seconds it was, Alec. I just feel full of love. So just got to show you, see, people, that having values and faith definitely works. And it's also, I think it's really nice just to have true friends in this world. The number of times I've sat there, say, on a Friday, and Alison has sent me text me something like, "Hello, Superman. We love you," or something. It just,
Paul. When I say that, I mean, and I really mean this to your listeners. I know loads and loads and loads of entrepreneurs across the country. But you are the real deal.
Thank you, old chap. So that was Alec Jones Hall. That was the Monday Aspen Waite Radio Breakfast Show, and I'll be back tomorrow. So see you guys.
Online